All right, was just negotiating with my dog to start today's stream. That is how it works. So yeah, today we're going to be doing some more work on the Gagrammy, which is our name for the Goliath now. Very exciting stuff. I can go ahead and pull Foundry over to my main desktop and close some other stuff that I no longer have a need for. I got about an hour to work on stuff before I got to get going, so we'll waste no time and get straight into it, I think. So, um, basically, what we've got here is the what we've done so far has been mostly just get our legs under us as far as what the Gogrami are all about. So we have a pretty reasonable idea of what's going on here. Hey, what's going on, Balethal? Hope you're doing well, sir. So this obviously started off as the Goliath, and I've given them a different name. I've also given them a very different origin. I think they were like, it's left pretty vague in the D&D writings that I read yesterday when I was working on this, but my initial thought process is more or less that D&D kind of left it super vague, with the idea that they were essentially just humanoids, right? But they were bigger. And they're like, maybe there's some kind of somewhere in between human and giant or something like that. Not necessarily genetically, but just in terms of the place that they operate on. They're like an alternative species of humanoid, right? Um, and so in Isindasor, the Gagrami are going to be more like I just realized that I have Gogrish as the null language, and Gogrami sounds like it would be related to that. That might have been a faux pas, but that's all right. Sometimes it's just, maybe there's some connection that gnolls have to the Gogrami, and that could actually be something we play into instead of run away from. Anyway, yeah, the Gogrami are more of the earth, of the terrain that they originate in. There's been some like thought process and speculation on the server about how maybe there's like, I think Shambler was writing about how there might be some kind of particular magically inclined ore that, like ore, right, or that gives rise to the Gagrami as shepherds of the earth itself, not necessarily of organic nature, but geologic nature. And broadly speaking, my vision for the Gagrami is that they begin more organic and almost like fleshy and like visceral, I guess would be one word. They begin that way in their youth when they are initially manifest, but after their conception, as they age, they become more geologic. They become more like stone, like the material from whence they came, from whatever gave rise to them. Their life cycle comes to an end with them being more like stone in that way. And so I've tweaked their description a little bit to indicate that. Um, I'll still continue to have ideas about the like what kinds of societies Gagrami might have or whatever, but I think the um, overall, the most of the work that we're going to do on the Gagrami here is like we'll do one or two more origins, and then maybe we'll come up with like a couple of ideas for what the remaining origins could be, because their geologic origin is like essentially their biome. Where they came from gives them endows them with certain like specific attributes. So the Earthen Grasp is like a global passive that gives them proficiency in athletics, and also gives them the ability to add their Constitution modifier to any grappling. And then they get an additional skill proficiency, language choice, and some other trait, in addition to some kind of resistance. They get all of those four things from their origin. So, in the case of like the hill origin, it says here you were birthed by the endless rocky hills of a grassland, prairie, or waste. You may be stout compared to other Gagrami, with more physical agility to compensate, which allows you to have like a climbing speed equal to your walking speed, the acrobatics proficiency. I don't think that we're going to give you like more movement because you're already going to be pretty big and stocky, so you don't need more movement. I don't think you're going to get like a dex bonus necessarily. Your dexterity decreases by 1, and your con increases by 1 just for being a Gagrami. And then you distribute 1 point into strength, int, wisdom, or charisma. So that already covers your +2 -1 that I usually am going for with these racial changes lately. Like if we look at the way that Null works, you've got charisma -1, and then you distribute 1 point to strength, dex, or con. I can't remember if the demonic heritage gave you stuff. Oh, it does. It says it gives you a score. Yeah, that's because it's because you have a for Null, right? As a comparison point. Your charisma decreases by 1, but you have a 1 increase, and then you need a +1 anyway, because like net +1 is what we're going for here with the races. So the reason why I decoupled the the secondary increase from the Gagrami, like Constitution being a baseline thing is an intent to make all Gagrami feel different than, say, all humans, right? But distributing 1 point, irrespective of your origin, is to decouple that because, in my opinion, it would be a little bit awkward if somebody wanted to come from a certain area, but that area also dictated dictated so much about what they were, to the point where it's even affecting their ability scores, because it already is going to dictate a decent amount. It's going to give you a decent amount of influence there. I'm already a little bit like maybe reticent to provide so many changes based on your origin here, because one thing that's not necessarily the case about the, say, like the Null traits or the Orc traits. Some of the Orc traits do, I guess, change a lot. I'm thinking about like Arm of Agatoth changes quite a bit. The Might of Agatoth changes a lot. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. But overall, I would say that like these changes dictate a lot about your character as it is, but they also dictate a lot about your role-playing possibilities, I guess, is one way to think about it. Like, you can kind of do whatever, but if you're from a grassland or something, and the campaign takes place in, like, a desert, then, like, how did you get here? That already starts to become a more concerning, like, thought process, right? That's like there's potential concern there, I think. So I'm just gonna keep this movement thing out here so I remember all the different movements that one can do. I do have my window open, by the way. My dog is in my room and he's not liking the heat, so I figured I would leave the window open. That does mean that traffic will be louder. Okay, so let's come up with a couple of additional origins here. Oops, I closed it by accident. Make another feature here. We're going to call it so the hill, like you'll note that the hill part is like the reason why you'd have climbing speed related to hills is because you might have to constantly move up and down. It's like a small mountain, right? Whereas a mountain one would be more about like, I think you'd have to have like climate control. You'd probably get like a survival proficiency as opposed to acrobatics. Like, it's less about bursts of movement to scale the terrain and more about like a steady climb. So that's like where mountain takes me. But mountain is also like, you could have a mountain underwater, you could have a mountain that's got a volcano in it, you could have a mountain that's snow covered, and in, like in theory you could have like there's parts of a mountain that aren't snow covered too. So I think I'm just gonna blaze past those concerns and just say it's gonna be called a mountain. You know, Mountain Gagrami. Gogrum might be the singular term, but I'm gonna call him Gagrami for now. So I don't think that the actually let me pop open the senses section as well, so I have that to hand. Because I don't think that the mountain Gagrami are going to have like a climb speed or anything like that. Fly is off the table for Gagrami. Swim speed definitely for the ones that are going to be underwater. I don't know if I'll call that like abyss or trench or something like that. Probably. I don't know. I'll think of a cool thing. Chasm Gagrami. But yeah, we've got like burrow could be kind of interesting, but I think I don't really know. Burrow is like maybe it would have to be half of your movement because it extends your movement by default, as far as I understand. Or maybe I never really did learn the rules behind that. I think if you have a 30 feet of climb, I can't remember if it's like you can climb for as much feet as that, but it still burns your walk. Like your walk is your core movement, and then if you have a climbing speed equal to your walking speed, that means that you can climb for 30 feet instead of walking for 30 feet, or you can like walk for 15 then climb for 15. But if it's additive in that you could walk for 30 feet and then climb for 30 feet or vice versa, that's actually a significant boost to your movement. So I'm going to have to think about that. Like maybe they all need to be halved. But I just can't remember what the rules were. It would make more sense to me that it's like, because I think it's the, and this is the one that makes more sense, but I think this is actually what it is that it's instead of. And so, because normally to climb, you would have to like, it's like difficult terrain or whatever, depending on what it is. And so to climb like a mountain, you can only climb 15 feet normally. But if you have 15 feet of climbing, then you can move that way and still have 15 feet of walking left over or whatever. So that's like where I think that makes sense. And under that kind of rule set, burrow at 15 feet of burrow would still be pretty good. Because it means that you can like avoid attacks of opportunity and do a bunch of other things in movement. So that would be a really sick thing, but that won't be for mountain. Mountain will probably get. I was thinking about giving them tremor sense, or some other kind of like it could be movement or vision. It could be like movement or senses rather, and it could also be like. Obviously, it could be things like elemental resistances or what have you. So the hill origin gives you bludgeoning stone's endurance. The mountain origin is going to give you a different kind, right? So. So I'm thinking like mountain will give you resistance to probably like 2 elements. I think if you have resistance to bludgeoning damage, that's actually pretty big because there's lots of enemies that use bludgeoning attacks, and then there's also things like displacements where you're going to get sent into the wall or whatever, and that would also be a resistance there. So I think that's actually pretty big. So if we look at yeah, that's fine. This is a species feature, and we would define it as having a usage of prof. Okay. I'm forgetting the damage types, of course, so let's go here. Yeah, okay, so it's not called frost, it's cold. That's what I was looking for. I guess it would be cold or thunder. If I had to pick two. Like, it could be force as well, but I don't think so. That's like a lot of more arcane things. All right, I'm going to keep that to the side, so that's another reference we have. We can close earth and grass. Cold or thunder damage. This means that you can... this has like a pretty neat thing, because if you're a mountain Gagrami, then one of the things you can do is, against booming blade users, you can just decide to ignore it sometimes, you know? Which is pretty sick as an idea. That's like... that... You know, neutralizing the damage entirely might be kind of lame, but... it's something that you can only do a few times, so... Whereas I'm pretty sure Booming Blade is a cantrip. So, yeah, no, that's like one of those things that's not really that big of a deal. But it could be pretty consequential in early skirmishes, right? You use reaction to roll 1d12 plus your constitution modifier, reducing the damage taken by that. Oh. Okay. And maybe this should specifically be like mountains endurance instead of stones. I'm going to go ahead and toggle edit here as well, and we're going to say hills endurance. It's not going to go back to the old format because Foundry is functional. I can't even do like an escape or anything because it just does not work. It does nothing. All right. Well, as a result, I guess we can just go ahead and copy this over, and we'll say survival. And okay, what are we giving the mountain Gagrami instead of the movement climbing speed thing that Origin Hill provides? I feel like one of the things that could be provided, like I was talking about Tremor Sense potentially. I guess you could say like Dark Vision might be best reserved for ones that are in like the Abyss or the whatever we end up like a dark, you know, like a cavern Gagrami. There you go. Abyss Gagrami would probably be best served as an option for like for the deep water. And then of course there's like a volcanic Gagrami, but I don't really know if I'm just going to call it volcano or something else. Like, it would be fine if I called it that, but there's like an anatomy of a volcano that like volcano anatomy. Crater. That could be kind of interesting. But I don't know. Crater could be anything, right? It doesn't have to be an active geologic thing, so. But I like the idea of it being that. Yeah, we'll probably just call it a volcano origin, but okay. So for mountain, um, for mountain, rather than give them any particular movement or senses, um, I suppose one thing we could do is we could basically resolve. Let's see. So one thing that I remember from seeing how the Goliath was set up is they had this trait called Little Giant or Powerful Build, which is carrying capacity and weight you can push, drag, or lift. And I actually kind of forgot about that trait in the context of the Gagrami when I was porting them yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Maybe it was 2 days ago. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was Sunday. So yeah, I don't think I streamed yesterday, because I was too busy casting stuff. So when I was doing the work on the Gagrami, we got to the point where we were talking about, like, we did Stone's Endurance, we ported that into the Origins. But I think oh, I see, there's also the Mountain-born, resistance to cold, acclimated to high altitude. That high altitude thing feels like it wouldn't really be that big of a deal. I know that technically speaking, that is actually a big deal. Like, if you end up having a campaign which goes to high heights. But realistically speaking, I'd probably just ask for a con save and, like, for every week that you're in or for, like, I don't know, for every day for the first week. And, like, that just determines, like, certain things. I don't even know if I would do that, because it would probably just be boring. So, I don't know. I'm going to leave it at that for now. I don't think I'm going to port that detail in, because having a detail that tells you, like, this particular race has this particular very specific niche resistance to something that, now that I think about it, should apply to everything that isn't this race, and as a result would make that terrain unplayable for most people. Yeah, that's basically where my brain goes when I read that. So I'm like, all right, maybe we don't ask those questions by opening those floodgates. We leave that for later. Okay, so we're going to say that the Mountain Gagrami are going to have, like, this powerful build thing. And we will probably still call it Mountain-born. Or something, maybe I'll come up with something else later, but... so, what does it even say here? It's, you proficiency in athletics, you count as one size larger. Yeah, this is the thing. So, I guess we'll just call it powerful build. Which is its own feature as far as I'm aware. I'll have to search that up later and add it to Foundry. I think getting, like, the fact that the hill Gagrami have this climbing speed thing, I think is still pretty useful and cool. Especially if, like, I don't specifically legislate against it for the map making and stuff. Like, I'm building maps that reward it. I'm pretty sure I'm building maps as it's currently said that reward that. Exterior maps. Maybe the interior ones could use a little bit more love for climbers, but generally speaking, I feel like that's a thing that I'm doing. Yeah. Let's go find some epic fantasy mountain. Perfect. I just needed like a little slice. Stuff like this, so. So once we are done with this one, I got to think about which one I next want to do. Why isn't it working? Hell yeah, Batman. I'm thinking we probably need, like, for variety's sake, like, Volcano and Abyss are a little bit more... I think Cavern is the next one, because the other two are a bit more fanciful, and I probably want, like, maybe at least one other that I gotta think about. So, Cavern is, like, flexible enough that it could be super deep, or it could be more closer to the surface. And that one would probably have, like, Burrow. Maybe Burrow and Tremor Sense? I'm trying to think about that. For resistance, I don't really know what it would be. Maybe slashing, but slashing is pretty common, so that would be really strong. So I don't know if I would want to give them Burrow and Tremor Sense as a result. But I guess you could say that, like, the slashing part and it only having Tremor Sense would kind of offset. Like, Tremor Sense is not very... it's a bit more niche. So maybe that would help. Is Gogrami, Origin Mountain. Now we need Fantasy Cavern. Can I find the big image, please? Apparently not. There you go. I think Cavern, and it's good that this one has some light to it too. I think this one is helpful because it avoids, like, the begging the question about like why we don't have dark vision with them, right? Because, like, oh, you know, it's a cavern, but you probably weren't in there the entire time. They could have dark vision instead of Tremor Sense. We could save Tremor Sense Burrow for a combo, which should probably be fine. So yeah, maybe that's it. Problem is, like, the Abyss would maybe also have dark vision. I don't want dark vision to be ubiquitous, because I feel like dark vision is like probably the most useful thing that you can get, right? So, for as far as senses go, it's the most easily applicable one. So it feels like very potent as a result. All right. So we are going to come to this advancement and hit edit. And we'll add mountain. And then we will add origin, cavern, Gogrami. I think default sight range is like 60 feet limit or something. Oh no, I can't remember if there is default sight range. I can't remember. I think you can actually just see forever, as long as there's light. Do I want the cavern one to have slashing? I'll put that down for now, but it's pretty good, so... I gotta think about which skill to give them as well. Maybe nature, maybe... Nature isn't terrible here, I think. Oh, I didn't do languages for the mountain. I'm gonna have to think about that one. Definitely not. I was gonna say definitely not Ag Attack. Okay, this is where we go for the cavern. Maybe instead of slashing, it should be piercing. That gives Cavern Gogrami a nice little roll versus like ranged attackers, and I guess like daggers. Um, but it still means that slash like general swords aren't always going to work. Piercing is still pretty useful, but it's more of like a roll. I mean, slashing is still also a roll. It just means that then you'd be more vulnerable from afar. But I'm thinking like you wouldn't get slashed by the cavern walls that are pointy or whatever that you can't see because of the low light. Okay. Dog. Cool. Oh, I guess we should edit this to be appearance, and this will be like so. It should probably have just been like the global term for it would probably just be like Earth's endurance, but I think it's fine to have it be like this. Okay. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and close that out, and close that out, and close that out, and close that out. And we're going to take a quick screenshot of these. We'll say, oh, they're not going to be written. This little text window thing is still there, but whatever. More origins for Gogrami. Others will include abyssal, swim speed, oh shit, I closed my damage reference. My door has shut by itself with assistance of the wind. Oh, it's really good. Probably my chief complaint about this place. We'll call that one done. How much time? We're gonna do a little bit of hunting. Oh, hold on. I was trying to get my dog's attention, but he refused. Okay, so I got a little bit of time. We're going to be doing some Underdark work. This is part of Shambler's request. So if I go ahead and I find info about the Underdark, let's see what the default D&D stuff. Oh. So, let's see. Any natural formations in the material plane, the Underdark had counterparts in the Feywild and the Shadowfell. Ah, okay. So I was struggling with a good name for my version of the Underdark because I kind of wanted to lean into the idea that things in my version of the Underdark were like they were sans sun. They had no light from the sun. Um, so I thought about I thought about something related to the word ebon. I think I really want to go with the idea of the word mantle as part of it, like a portmanteau of something and mantle. But I need a monosyllabic word to go with that because ebon mantle is like too much of a mouthful. Underdark is 3 syllables, so something mantle, you know, a monosyllabic word and then mantle would be the same amount of syllables. But I feel like that I'm not doing that because Underdark. I'm doing that because it's just more satisfying that way, I think. So I have to kind of think about that a little bit more deeply. Um, hmm. I thought about like obviously there's words like deep, but I feel like that's better served for the abyssal, like the water area and stuff. Um, maybe grave mantle, but that's a little bit. There's the those words don't go together very well. So if we go to like thesaurus, a classic move, I look for the word deep. Mm. Grave. We could just say like grave crust or grave rock or grave earth or I don't know. But that makes it I think the word grave in a fantasy context does make you feel more about like undead. So it feels more like that would be a zone of um it would be a zone of things, right? Like that would be a I don't know. Like you could come up with something that would be pretty like it would be about as generic as Underdark, like dire crust or whatever, but like I want something a little bit more has a little bit more meaning. More like Underdark the words are almost a little too simple for what I like in a setting. Um you can't read into too much like mythological meaning behind it or whatever. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to see if I could invoke the sun. Crepuscular. Yeah, lacking light is one of them for sure. I thought about rayless. I obviously thought about sunless. These feel like words that you would use to describe whatever place this is, as opposed to the title of it, though. The Tenebral is obviously a reference to the Tenebrous. To me, specifically, Tenebrous has mythological connotations, but I don't actually think there are mythological connotations to its origin. So. I also like the idea of implying the devil that you don't know or something like that. Like, this is the fear of the unknown is really what I would like to go for. And so that's one of the things that I think when you take out the sun, you take out light, you do invoke, but maybe we can try to invoke that more directly somehow. But that's where like tenebrous works out, I think, as a word because it means ominous. It's not just dark, it's ominously so. It's like something that is both of those things at once. Um the unlit. Yeah. So maybe I'll go with Tenebril as the working title. Which would be spelled T-E-N-E-B-R-A-L. Kind of like umbral, but with tenebrous as the root word. But I don't know if that's... I guess we could probably go with an O-L instead of an A-L. Like Erebol. Hence Erebus. Yeah. I thought about Umber, I thought about Ebony, I thought about Ebon in general, like without the Y. Because I think like Ebon Black is something, right? Ebon Black is... I thought Ebon Black was a term. Maybe I can search specifically for that. No. I swear that was like that was like some kind of thing. Maybe I'm just maybe there's no cryptomnesia, and actually that's something I came up with. But I swear the Ebon Black was a name of something. Maybe I can try Google instead. It might be with 2 B's. No. Okay, I guess not. I mean, web searching is unreliable these days, but I suppose if I couldn't find any instance of it, it might be a thing. Okay, so let's think a little bit here, because I have a bit of time still. Oh, maybe I do not have time still. Okay. Well, I thought I had more time, but I do not. Well, at least we have a name for it, a working title for it, the Tenebril. I'll think if Ebon Black is something that feels maybe a little bit too forward, a little bit too overindulgent almost as a term. So let's come back to this in a later stage. Sorry this stream was shorter than I expected it to be. We almost got to the 1 hour mark. But yeah, I'll be back. I don't know about tomorrow, but I'll be back soon to continue doing more work on this, and I'll probably do a bunch more work on it offline, because I do want to make sure that by the end of this week, I've done the duty on that. And hopefully also finished up the Immortal class development, and then also got the other Gogrami racial features. So that's the D&D stuff, plus I got to prep for the next session anyway. But I will leave it at that for now. GG's, and I'll see you guys around. Peace.